Sweet, still recording and doesn't feel to be overheating-ish. So, quizzes are optional. I could tell you didn't care for that too much, but that's okay. You'll see why it's a good thing momentarily. And you'll also see, that's why I'll also sometimes post more than one quiz. Like for next week, I think I'll post 2. I have like a review quiz plus the quiz that we're talking about that day. And Kate, you asked me a question, what's on the quizzes? Was that you?
Yeah.
It was a great question. The quiz on Thursday is the oddball. We'll come back to him momentarily. But the quizzes generally are about a 1-week lag. So whatever we do this week will be on next week's quiz. Week 3 will be on week 2, week 4, week 3. And in that kind of way, I do circular learning. I don't ever let you forget anything because you're constantly looking back while we're going ahead. So your mind's kind of doing this, which is a good thing. He's kind of stretching and remembering to not forget things. Math, it's enough of a math class in that things build on themselves like they've always done in math classes. But I like to do that kind of constant revisiting of topics. Plus, giving you a week to work on it. If we do a topic this Thursday and I make a quiz due next Thursday, that means you've had an entire week to kind of revisit it. Rather than giving you a quiz due that day on something we learned that day. So quizzes are done outside of class. I don't give you in-class quizzes. I don't like that. I used to do that and it was a big flop. So, cool. So optional quizzes, make at least 1 per week, probably more, 10 points a pop. 10 points a pop. We'll get into more about what points are momentarily too. Quizzes are the oddest thing, for sure, of this whole class. Please.
So the quiz on Thursday, is it due on Thursday, or are you going to post it on Thursday?
The one on Thursday is already posted. And
Okay.
We'll take a look at it in a second.
Okay.
And if you guys had the in-class last term, it's the same one that we've used then. So if you still have it, just return it in. But we'll come back. We'll come back to that, I promise. So we'll come back to quizzes. We'll run an example of a student in week 5 with a grading calculator, and you'll see why the optional thing is a good thing. Projects, you may have noticed those. There's one in week 3, right there, basic probability. There's one in week 6, which is called joint probability. There's one in week 8, which is on supercounting and simulations. And there's one in week 10, which is on Bayes' theorem, without using Bayes' theorem. And the reason these projects exist, and this will slowly disappear, I think, as the open source text comes together. Every textbook that I've seen approaches those topics either wrong or not at all. And I say wrong, that's kind of ballsy for me to say it's wrong or doing it wrong. I keep going to statistics ed conferences. I've been going to them for about 10 years. And the common belief of how students learn is not represented in those topics in math textbooks, including the one I just gave you guys, the open source one. Even that book does it kind of traditionally, the way it's always been done since 1945. And it's been kind of shown via looking at data that that's not the best way to do certain topics. So what I've done is I've pulled those topics out and replaced them with those projects, which tend to slim down the study of those topics into more manageable bites. So what they end up looking like, we'll crack one open here. We'll crack open week 3's project. Basic probability, it looks a little bit like a small chapter of a textbook. If you've been in my classes before, you've seen these before. You've seen these kind of projects. So you've got little examples, you've got solutions to the examples in line, okay? You've got justification and defining going on. So it's almost like I'm in class with you, but it's the kind of thing that can be learned. You don't need me to be reading this to you. It's kind of self-paced, if you will. And then when you get towards the end of the reading bit, you'll start seeing things that are worth points. So right here, down here, 2 points each, right? 2 points each. 3 points. And there's quite a bit that's written in red. Reds are the solutions. Reds are the answers to those problems. Your job is to show me how to get the answer. Okay? And there's not much math. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of math. I explained to you up here how to get to that, how to show you that. Give me a fraction to a decimal, or a decimal to a percentage, or something like that. So that's pretty much what projects are. It's like a small section of a textbook, a small section of a chapter of a textbook. But it's self-paced. It's not the kind of thing you need to have a discussion with me in class on. You can always email me, you can always call, you can always ask tutors for help. Do me a favor. About 2 years ago, I got a really irate phone call from the tutoring center. A bunch of my students, a couple times in a row, I think it was 243 actually, waited until the night before a project was due, and then they all went down there like the night before a class at 8:15 the next day, and they were demanding the answers for the projects. They didn't care how they got the answers, they just wanted the answers. And the tutors rightfully were upset about that. They're like, no, we're going to sit down, we're going to work through these with you. And they're like, no, I just got to get this done. And the tutors were like, I understand that you have to get it done, but you also have to learn. It's kind of the point of education. And the students just were very, very adamant about getting the answers and getting out. And the tutors were pissed, and they should have been. So promise me you won't do that. Because otherwise I have to make up all these rules about dates and when you can and can't go to the tutors. I really don't want to do that. I'm Italian. I'm a huggy kind of guy. I don't want to be setting up dates. No, you can't go down the second Friday when the moon is blue. Let's just not abuse the tutors, okay? Cool? You got plenty of time to work on these things, friends. This thing's not due till week 3, it's already up and running. This one's not due till week 6, it's already there. Week 8, week 10, you can start working on any of these right now. I would go in order. It makes more sense to go in order. But you can start project number 1 tonight if you wanted to, if you're that bored. I'm sure you're all very, very bored the first week of school. But you can start those at any time, and you can ask me for help with them at any time. You can work with classmates at any time. Okay? So just don't procrastinate. One of my 244s, like, I procrastinated at 105, and it was a huge mistake. It is, because this stuff does compound. Some of the projects require technology. Some of the out-of-class exams require you to use Excel. So the projects, you don't want that to backfire at 2 in the morning. Okay? You want to be able to have enough time to work on that and get stuff squared away. The project will not take you 3 weeks to do, but it might take you 3 weeks to find half an hour to sit down and do it. That's why I give you so much time in between. That's why I give you a week for quizzes, a week and a half for the out-of-class part of the exam, 3 weeks or more for projects, because it might take you that time in between total fit and whatever else to squeeze in a project, to get part of a project done. Okay? Please tell me your name.
Hattie.
Hattie, thank you.
Are any of these technologies that we're going to be needing to use PC exclusive, or can we use a Mac?
You can use a Mac. I would recommend, only because of the way I set up the help features, if 95% of the time, Mac and PC are going to behave the same in the kind of stat we're going to be doing. But when it comes to graphical interfaces, like when I'm making you create box plots or histograms, the Macs tend to be a little bit more grumpy with the PC directions. If it gets to the point where it's frustrating you, I would say just bite the bullet and spend 25 minutes in a computer lab and knock it out there. That's a terrible answer. But I've spent hours to solve a 5-minute problem with Mac students before, trying to make my directions, and I have to learn it on the fly. If you're comfortable going to Google and looking for answers, go for it. But it tends to be the best thing is just kind of just bite the bullet and spend 25 minutes on PC. I hate to say that. Please realize how much I hate to say that. This is the guy that records on a Macintosh, so please understand how much it hurts me. Please, Kate.
Is it the program, the Open Office or whatever?
You can use Open Office. I designed it in Excel.
Okay.
When I have you use the spreadsheets, because you all have Excel access as students, I've used that because that's the commonality.
Yeah.
You can use Open Office if you want to.
Well, I was saying the problems that the Macs have, is that because of the program they're using, or is that using Microsoft Excel?
I think it could be a little bit of both. If you use like Office for Mac, the commands just don't always work the same.
Okay.
Especially when it comes to graphs. Like if you try to make a scatter plot using my instructions, it will not give you a scatter plot. Even though if you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do, you have to hold down like this special little Mac button that doesn't exist on a PC. It's just weird. And the simulations that you'll be doing in Project 3 where you're pressing the F9 button like there is no F9 button on a Mac. It's like, what the hell's F9? So sometimes it's more trouble than it's worth, which pains me to say. But cool? All right, good. Other questions about those? Are very good questions. So those are projects. There's 4 of those, and they're 25 points a pop, so that's 100 points. The quizzes, there's at least one every week, 10 points a pop, so that's 10 weeks, that's 100 points there. The last thing to talk about are exams. And when I was talking, give the history of my exams. I used to give 2, a midterm and a final, and that's because all my profs used to give a midterm and they give a final, and that was it. And I've heard horror stories about profs that would give a midterm, and if you failed the midterm, they'd return your midterm with you with a drop form stapled and already signed. And I vowed that I would never be that guy, ever, be that kind of an instructor. And then I started realizing that everybody was giving midterms and finals. Like everybody was giving a week 5 midterm and a week 11 final. So I said, oh, I'm creating all this anxiety by contributing to that system. So I did 3 exams versus 2. So instead of 2 exams that were 150 points, I did 3 that were each 100 points. And which was pretty good, because I was given an exam week 4, and then students had like a week and a half to study for their midterm in week 5. And then I'd give an exam week 7, and then they could relax until week 10. But then other people caught wind of that, or it just kind of like a system shift, and people started doing 3 exams as well, week 4, week 7, and week 10. So I said, well, okay, how can I change it to make less math anxiety for my students? Because I don't like that. I don't like it when you guys feel anxious, because it impacts your performance. Obviously, you're creating anxiety, and you're hiding from me what you're capable of doing. If I can minimize that anxiety, So an experiment I tried last year, some of which you were subject to, was the half in, half out of class exam idea. So now, I still give exams week 4, week 7, and week 11, but you only take half of the exam in class traditionally. So if you look at week 4, you've got the in-class portion on Thursday of week 4. Beginning of week 4, down here, this is the out-of-class portion. It'll be hyperlinked and ready to go. And you can start working on that beginning of week 4. So you'll have a week and a half to work on that. Who can work on an out-of-class exam with you? Everybody. I think I don't let you work with me on those, though. I think I take myself out of the equation because I want you to work together by that point on that assessment. So I take myself out. I think. I have to go back to my notes and look. This is still pretty new. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's right. I take myself out.
No,
Yes.
I don't think so. I think that we can ask you for help.
You can, but I don't want to answer you. You can ask me for anything. Give me $100. No. So, but the idea is that hopefully, now you guys weren't a control group because you never had the single in-class exams and then replace them with half in and half out. But I'm hoping that, I've heard nothing but, yay, keep doing that. So my next logical step was to make everything out of class. Like, let's just take everything out of class. And guess what happened? People didn't want it. The surveys that I did last year, they said, no, it was split almost evenly down the middle. We like having a little bit of the in-class individual assessment. Caught me off guard, and I'm going to ask you guys again at the end of the term. But when I say, should I change this grading system? Like, no, your grading system is fine the way it is, leave it. So I'm going to ask you guys in 11 weeks and see what you think. But for right now, we got half in, half out. If you still think about it, the lion's share of what you're doing in this class is out of class. All the projects, all the quizzes, and half of the exams. I mean, you're talking 80%, if not a little bit more, of your class is done outside of class with each other collaboratively, just like the real world, right? Just like work, just like jobs. Must play well with others. I'm trying to kind of train you not only statistically, but also kind of like to be ready to work with others in like a workplace situation. So the in-class exams still feel a little weird because of that, but people seem to like them. And maybe it's tradition, maybe it's because we're used to them, I don't know. So what I try to do, and my 105 friends chime in with this, what I try to do with the in-class ones, I make the in-class questions a lot more topical, quick computations, quick little matching kind of things, where the out-of-class is more writing. Why? Why do you think that? Could it be done a different way? Where you have to actually kind of think and write and a lot more critical thinking, where the in-class stuff is way, way more topical and superficial.
That's why you have the half and half majority.
That they want to keep it that way.
A lot of people work better with that versus.
Sure. So I'm kind of maybe hitting everybody a little bit better this way. Yeah, I mean, a couple of the people said erroneously, well, if you made them all out of class, you'd make it impossible. No, I'd make you critically think the entire thing then. And I think that might translate to impossible in some people's minds. And that's okay. We'll keep it the way it is for right now. Because it seems to make the majority of people learn well. And I get beautiful, beautiful responses on the out-of-class and the in-class section. So we're going to keep it that way for a while. Okay? We'll ask you again at the end of the term and see what you guys think. We'll keep the survey instrument going. That covers everything that's due as far as what's in class. So everything gets turned in the day it's due. You just bring in, drop into a pile in the front of the room here somewhere. Drop the quizzes, drop the projects, drop the out-of-class exams. The in-class exams I'll bring with me, obviously. And they won't take the entire class. You'll take an hour and knock that out, and then we'll do something else. That make sense? Now, I will email you a progress report every week. I don't know if I'll do one this week. We'll see if I get the grades in by Friday. Every Friday, you'll get an email from me based off the spreadsheet. But in case you ever want to calculate your grade at any given point during the term, I gave you a little grade calculator here on a 10-point scale. So this tells you how you're doing in the class. Note to self. I want to make up a student right now to show you the optional quiz deal and why it's a good thing. So let's say we're in week 5, and you've taken one exam, both the in and out of class parts, so you got 100 points there. You've taken 5 of whatever quizzes are available. There'll probably be more than 5 by the way. Let's say you've done 5 just because. And you've done the one project that's available right now. So right now, how many points are available to you total, based on that? 175, right? You got 50 quiz points, 25 project points, and 100 exam points.
Oh,
And that's a pain in the butt to remember all that, right? Which is why you got the grade calculator, so you don't have to. All you've got to do now is put in what you got on those assessments. Make up some grades. What'd you do on the exam? Out of 100?
82.
82. Love it. 82. How about the quizzes? They're out of 10, remember?
9.
Got a 9? Throw some 10s. Whoops. Whoa. Not a 91,000. Got a 9, a 10, a 10. What else you got?
A 2.
A 2. Love it. Ooh, 2. Not a 21. A 2. Good Lord. Fat fingers.
How about a day?
And a 10. Yes, good. Sherilyn, thank you. I was like, you know what? Let's make it a 1. Make it even more obvious. And then say you got a 24 on the project. Now, if you look at these grades, they tend to follow-ish a pattern except for one of them. Sherilyn's bad day, right? But you can hit calculate, and right now you're sitting on an 83.4%, which means according to the chart, you're at a B. You're at a B right now. Okay. Here's why I make quizzes optional. So, that was a bad day. And here's the thing. You should know when you're handing in an assessment, on these out-of-class assessments, if it's good or not. You've met with people, you've bounced ideas back, you've talked to me, you've talked to tutors. You should know if you're turning in what basically is your best work. You didn't get a chance to meet with anybody. You're feverish. Your cat was puking all night in your shoes. Terrible night. Terrible night. Hungry, headache, not caffeinated enough. So you knew this was going to suck. Here's how you protect your grade. You don't turn it in,
Don't do
and you make that 4 quizzes instead of 5, and you recalculate your average. Did you notice that jump at the bottom? It went from 83.4% to 80, almost to 88%. You picked up like 4.5 percentage points by not turning in a crappy quiz. Why did it jump up like that?
Because if you don't turn the quiz in, the 10 points for the quiz doesn't go into the full pot.
Nice! When you think about your grade, the number in the bottom is your available points. The number in the top are the points you earned. When I took that quiz out, I removed 10 points from the denominator, but only 1 from the numerator. And if you make a denominator smaller than a fraction and leave the top the same, the fraction's value actually goes up. Think about 1/2 versus 1/3 versus 1/4. As the number in the bottom gets bigger, the fraction gets, or smaller, the fraction gets bigger. Your fraction just got bigger. That's why I do the quizzes as optional, because it protects your grade. That 1 out of 10, think about how you're doing. You got about an 80, about a 90, about 100, about 100, about 100, about a 95. You're doing really well on your grades, and you get a 1 out of 10. That's not like the rest of your grades. It's called an outlier. We're studying those in this class. And the outliers tend to pull the averages towards them. If they're lower, they pull them down. If they're higher, they pull them up. The problem with an outlier on a quiz is you have to get like a 21,000 to get it to pull it up, and you can't get a 21,000 on a quiz. You get close, you get 11. So the idea is know that you're turning in your best work. Here's what I've noticed anecdotally over time. And this is only anecdotes. I can't prove anything causes. The more quizzes people turn in, the better on average they do in the course. So if I actually graph, I take the students' names out and I graph the number of quizzes submitted and their overall averages at the end of the term, there's almost a beautiful rise like this. I can't prove that the quizzes cause the higher scores. I can't prove that, but there is definitely a correlation as that they're happening together. Okay? There might be something there. I also notice this. The more quizzes people turn in, the higher the average quiz score of the quizzes they're turning in. Most people are turning in quizzes, most of them are getting 10s out of the 10s on. I mean, 90% or more are getting 10 out of 10. Sherilyn.
I didn't turn in very many quizzes because I didn't feel
That's okay.
confident in
That was
what I
smart to do,
turning in.
or smart not to do, I guess.
But they would have helped.
Well,
If I would
Right.
have, taken the time to do what I needed to do to be able to turn in a good quiz,
yes.
and knowing that every week, I should have been able to do that, but.
So you'll do it in this class.
Gotten away.
And
Exactly.
all the students are hearing you say the exact same thing, and it's just more reinforcement.
Yep.
So you'll take that in this class, and it'll be fantastic. Excellent. That's why I make them optional, friends. Okay? They boost your grade when you do well, and they protect your grade if you're not sure about it, you just don't turn it in. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying don't submit it and let the points dot. Let the points get docked. Just work on it with me, work on it with your classmates. They're good practice. They're good practice. They're a random sample of homework. Coolish? Coolish. Yeah. You'll get the hang of the grading system pretty quickly once we get into it. But that's it for right now. Now, except there's one last thing. It was that quiz that's due on Thursday, right? So that quiz is the oddball. It's not a statistics quiz. What it is it's a quiz about this page, this rules hints page. I'm not going to read this to you. I used to read this to people on the first day. It takes about half an hour. I put half the class to sleep in the process. So, rather than read it to you, that's what the quiz on Thursday is. It's a true-false quiz on that page. So, you click on that quiz. It pops open this right here. This looks familiar. I think it's the same one you guys took in 105 last term. I would check the questions to make sure I didn't change any of them. Simply true or false. If you miss a class in which an exam is given and do not inform me, you can make up the exam anytime you like, true or false. I will most likely forget anything said to me before or after class, true or false. Assignments turned in late can still receive full credit, true or false. Just go answer all those questions. Every one of those questions can be answered in the big yellow boxes on that page. You just have to kind of scroll through and find the answers. Okay? It's what you think about as a syllabus. Thou shalt. The 10 Commandments of Rules class. Thou shalt not. Thou shalt inherit the statistics. So, that's what this quiz is. Don't feel the need that you have to print this out. You can if you want to. You can also do it on scrap paper. And that goes for projects. That goes for the out-of-class exams. That goes for any quiz. Unless you have to print me a graph, which I think you may have to do one time. You do these things on scrap paper and turn them in. Just make sure they're kind of neat. Don't spill like dinner and stuff on them. Unless it's really, really yummy. In which case, bring me some. Cool? 10 questions, 1 point a pop. And there's your first 10-point quiz. Do you have to do this quiz? No. Should you do this quiz? Yes. Yes, you should. And compare answers with your friends on Thursday when you go. Cool so far? All right. That's that. What else is there to talk about? Enrichment, you might never go to this page. This is simply one of those things where I'm a math geek at heart. I mean, I love statistics. I do. I think it's tremendous. I'm a humongous math geek. And when I was studying my stat classes back in the day, my profs would say things, and it would make me think about it, like, why? Like, they would tell me things like, well, the standard deviation of the binomial is root NPQ. And I'd be like, why is that? And the most common answer I got was because I've been teaching this for 30 years and that's what it says. And I didn't like that because I'm part German. I'm Italian, also part German. So I would go home and I'd work out the math as to why the standard deviation. So if you go to the enrichment page, you'll often hear me in class say, and if you want to know why, you can check the enrichment page. And you can scroll down here and there's all these justifications for like the Poisson and mean standard deviation of the binomial. Here's some of the math I did. That's what I did to answer my question that my prof would answer. You can see why I didn't answer it now. So if you're interested in why some of these things are the way they are, I'll point you to this page. I'd say 99% of students never go here. But the ones that become actuaries love this page because it actually gets them in there and gets them in the nuts and the bolts of what's going on. I've also put some math help sites people have steered me towards up here. The Khan Academy is one of them. Purple Math, Hippocampus. These are some students that told me about these things. So if you're late at night, 2 in the morning, and you need some statistics help and everybody's asleep except for you, you can just Google your question, which works brilliantly. You can find some of these help sites. You know, this is just kind of like a catch-all page for extra help if you need it. Anywhere else to put it. So there it is for you. And outcomes and college policies are just the stuff that has to. It's on every syllabus you've seen that you've gotten in the past 2 days. Have that stuff on. And that, my friends, is our syllabus. Think you get your way around it? Yeah, I think so. I think so. You got a quiz Thursday? Yes, for sure. Don't have to do it. I think you should do it. Definitely. There's some other stuff to talk about too. I think we'll talk about it as it makes sense to talk about, like rainy day coupons, which you guys remember from 105. We'll talk about those in week 3 when they're actually pertinent. So we'll get to all that. Any questions you guys have right now in this moment? A little concerned about the grading, or kind of like you see where it makes sense? If you don't see where it makes sense, it will make sense. I promise you this. It's definitely not standard, but it definitely is designed to protect you and protect your grade. That's my point, is to protect your grade. All right. What I'd like to do for the remainder of the day, I'm still recording. I'm going to start it and stop it again.